two. Check two. What's up, friends? What's up, fam? Famo? How's it going? That's right, we're dripped out. And I wore my black hat today. Normally I don't wear the black hat because lighting-wise it doesn't really work, but I have a somewhat brighter lighting situation now. I thought it could work. I think it's okay. Thank you, Carrier Wave. Thank you. Yeah, the hoodie's great. Instant favorite hoodie, this one. Instant favorite hoodie. And very much looking forward to other community members getting their very special, very cool TRRS merch, which you can get if you don't have it already. And there's been a surprising number of orders of merch, which has kind of taken me aback a little bit. If you've not ordered merch though and you would like to, such as this hoodie, you can do so on the link in the chat. TRRS merch. Really cool stuff. And have more soon. Black cats in Western movies are an image storytelling for... Interesting. Don Dark Sony, thank you very much for the 18 months resub at tier 1. Thank you, Don Dark Sony. Bought the zip hoodie in black. Okay, cool. Let me know how that works out, Plunger Man. For one, I don't really like the zip hoodies as much, even though I wear them often, like in real life. Because it's the logo on the back. Which I'm less about that life. I would like to do a zip hoodie with just a small logo, like in the front. But I hope that you enjoy it. That's just my personal taste. My t-shirts be in by Monday. Excellent. Yeah, I saw there's a number of orders of the merch. I was like really kind of surprised. Surprised and delighted that so many people were enthusiastic about this. You know, it's really cool. It's really cool to me that there's going to be people walking around in real life, in the meat space, wearing official TRRS merch. That's very exciting for me. As a former band guy, especially. As a former band guy. You know. That's part of my creative output. I really like zip hoodies, but sometimes when I'm cold, I'd like to be able to hold my hands to warm them up. That's a no-go in those pockets. That's right. This is the classic hoodie pockets that everyone loves. As a you never leave your band or the CIA. Well, you can leave your band, but you never really leave the band guy mindset of being immature and not wanting to have a real job. That's been the main factor for me. That's been my main factor. Excited to have this foot. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're definitely gonna have merch that references the non-cult. That's definitely going to be a thing. Having a real job isn't that fun. It sucks. Listen, this is what no one wants to admit. No one is brave enough to admit this but me. Having a real job, it's not cool. I've had a lot of them. I've had a lot of real jobs throughout my life. Right? Ad agency, communication assistant, call center guy, gas station attendant or petroleum dispersal technician, busboy, theater technician. I don't know if that would be the name of it. I've worked at music festivals, behind the scenes music festival gopher. It's not cool. Public works engineer is a sweet gig, not gonna lie. Well, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I must imagine. That's why we need to have a bigger public sector. I mean, the public sector seems great. Unfortunately, in this fucking neoliberal hell, the possibility of getting public sector work has been restricted to the lucky few, such as Red Scary. The lucky, privileged few. And we're at the mercy of the fucking private sector. You look like a classic gas station job guy. It was the very first job I ever had. At the Olco gas station. The Olco gas station in Brockville, Ontario. It was the very first job I had. I worked at Walmart. I was store standards at Walmart for a while. A lot of jobs. A lot of shitty jobs. You know how cool it'd be to help your community get more clean water? That sounds great. That sounds rewarding, and I'm sure it's got good pay and benefits as well. Ooh, crazy. What a crazy idea. What a crazy idea. You can just give people jobs and give them a rewarding sense of community and accomplishment. And then you pay them decent wages and give them good benefits. What a crazy concept. What a crazy concept. I used to work for the United States Postal Service. Talk about a rewarding job that's benefit to society. That sounds pretty good too. I would love to be a postal worker, but I don't think I could now because I'm perpetually injured. I have chronic pain in my legs and feet, which makes it not ideal. Not ideal for walking around all day. We love our water and sewer operators. Seriously, it's like one of those jobs that most average people just don't have to think about. They just don't think about the miracle. The miracle of going into your bathroom or kitchen and opening a tap and having fresh, clean water coming out. We've just grown up in like basically the lap. No one at no point or at very few points during human history was this widely accessible to people. We don't think about the absolute miracles that take place, that allow us to just go into our kitchen and open the sink and get a nice, clean, refreshing glass of drinking water. Our public workers and sewer workers help make that happen. Literally, like one guy at the water plant can keep the water running better than a host of computer algorithms. Very good stuff. Hello, Warlock. What's up? Left private for public last year and I'm never going back. Yeah, I left the private sector just to like beg for donations on twitch.tv, which is like not ideal either. I love the work. I love the community. It would be nice to have like, vacation time, sick days, overtime, retirement, pharmaceutical benefits, it would be nice to have those things. It would be nice to have that. The work is great though. I wish daycare was public sector. Would have loved to do that as it is now. $9 to $12 US dollars an hour is a terrible pay average for such an important role. As with most of society's most important jobs, of course it's underpaid and overworked. And one of the most important jobs, it absolutely should be public sector. The idea that daycare is not public sector, I think, and in Quebec it's kind of half-half. And the public sector is involved in that in Quebec. And Quebec is one of the places where it's cheapest daycare and cheapest childcare in North America, even though it's been increased in cost over the last couple of years. But yeah, it should be widespread, nationalized, free daycare. That should be the standard. Of course it isn't. Kids know what's up and know to salute the garbage workers, even if they're outsourced to private in this town. It's weird how a lot of the most important jobs in our society, not only like do they not get compensated well enough, and garbage and sewer workers I think are compensated pretty well, but they're still viewed as like low class somehow, or like low importance, or low skill. Literally the most important jobs. Like garbage collectors, one of the most important jobs in our society. Remember going to school and like the janitors? And it's just like, I don't think you realize when you're in school have the janitors filling this like a vital, important role in our society. And just that extends to like nurses, teachers. So many of our really most important jobs, grocery store workers. We talked a lot about this during the pandemic. Grocery store workers, palliative care workers. These are the most important jobs you can possibly have. And they're the ones that are most routinely underpaid and looked down on. Society would collapse faster without sanitation, without doctors. Yeah, this is what I mean. It's strange, isn't it? And the people that do the least are the ones that get compensated the most. If I can figure that out. Or like go work at McDonald's. Go flip burgers at McDonald's. You don't get an education. It's like, that's a hard job. Not only is that a hard job, it's an important job. Tens of millions of people every day rely on people in these positions. Colonial minds say you need someone to look down upon. Yeah. I learned somewhere that janitor is pejorative and custodian is more appropriate. Yeah, you're probably right, Carnova. Overall, still people that are, I think, not given the social respect or the compensation that they deserve. I hate that so much. My mom would threaten me as a kid that if I don't study, I'm going to be a garbage man. Eat shit, Mom. Garbage men are cool. Yes, they are. Yes. Public works jobs are also fairly recession resistant because they aren't funded through taxes, and people still be drinking and shitting no matter what the economy is doing. This is true. This is true. And like you talk about like the sewer socialism. in Wisconsin, right? In America, that was like one of the foundational like socialist movements where socialism became prominent in these public works because of Wisconsin, because the sewer socialists that were just like, you need us to like do this job that everyone needs, and you need us to like do a good job and make sure that we have good, capable people running the system. And it's not running on a profit basis, on the profit motive. I can say that my job is considered a decent job and I do absolutely nothing of value. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way when I worked in advertising. I just, every day in, day out, I was like, not only is my job not of value, I'm actively making society worse. It's not even benign. It's literally a pox on society. I'm literally making society and culture worse day in, day out. Sanitation workers have great pay and pension. You can retire full pension at 55. It's awesome. Yeah, and it should be. Food services, backbreaking work. Yeah, I mean, I was a busboy for about a year. And just that was like fucking really difficult. I was not good at it. And now the sewers are a joke in Milwaukee. No. It's not complicated. I mean, decades of underfunding something and privatizing something leads to the same result. I was a server and bartender for 13 years in the restaurant business until I physically couldn't because I blew my ankle out going upstairs too frequently at my last restaurant gig. That kind of comes through, that bartender vibe kind of comes through. Outrun. Outraven with the easygoing conversational nature that you have. Very inviting. Public works can be rife with corruption, though, because it brings in the most money and people are sickos with no respect for the public welfare. And that's why you do need a strong anti-corruption component, law enforcement component. Right? That's why you need someone to make sure that there's none of that bullshit's going on. And if it ever does go on, then bad things happen to the people that get caught up in it. Overturn. Just having some apple and cheese here. Little lunchtime snack. Not really a real lunch. Just a little snack, though. I was really like, before the stream, I was rushing to get ready to do the stream. I wanted to edit our podcast before I started, so I was really like rushing right up to the start of the stream to do that. But we did a great Insurgents episode last night with Steve Sladkowski of the band Pup. I don't know if you're familiar with Pup. Really cool band. Steve's a great guy. We had a really good conversation last night on the Insurgents with him. Hey, Quinbetter, what's up? Glad to hear it. I've been in restaurants for 23 years. No one wants to work in restaurants, and everyone keeps asking me why. I tell them because this job sucks, and you have to deal with a lot of difficult people. People have lost their tolerance to put up with bullshit from strangers to make a decent wage. Yeah, or not even make a decent wage in many cases, but like make the restaurant owner of extremely wealthy while you're just busting your ass fucking day in, day out. I think it's an industry worth saving, but like everything, would benefit from a drastic overhaul in the power structures of how it operates. Where the people that are, picking the food, shipping the food, making the food, serving the food, and then cleaning up were the ones that were like profiting, and not the food conglomerates and shipping conglomerates and wealthy restaurant owners who contribute nothing. It's like anything. It's an industry that like is under capitalism, is exploitative, and under a different model of society could be still a vital part of our communities that actually supported the people that did all the work to keep it running. Tear it down and start over. Yeah. Like everything. Public eateries under socialism, right? It sounds great. By the way, I switched up the Apple type today. Switched up the Apple type at the old grocery store. Working on a oh shit, the sweater is sick. Thank you, Marina. Thank you. Yeah, no, I really like it. Maybe we can talk about some kind of sponsorship. Also, parasitic middle companies like Skip, Uber Eats. It's exactly... All of this should be public. Like the food delivery, the ease with which they can get food delivery is great. It's great for the consumer. It can be good for restaurants. You can count obviously on under capitalism. It fucking sucks for everyone except the owners.
Crisp Gang.
Cosmic Crisp Gang. Thank you, Mother Trucker, for the 6 months of Tier 1. Did switch it up at the grocery store. Thank you for getting me back on track. Working on a Pink Lady. Pink Lady apple. There you go, Sunny Sola. I got a Pink Lady right here. Love working on a Pink Lady over here. I was going to continue with that, but then I gotta dial it back. Love the taste of a nice in my mouth. I was going to say that, but shouldn't be weird. Shouldn't be weird about it. Pink Ladies hold up half the sky. Thank you. Thank you, Marina. Just tuning in now, have we got an RIP Ray Liotta in the chat yet? No, we haven't, and we should have one. We should get an RIP Ray Liotta. Acting legend. Acting legend. Gone too soon. RIP to Ray. I might be due for a Goodfellas rewatch, actually. Might have to do a Goodfellas rewatch. Ray Liotta died, yeah. Shout out to his family. I watched Operation Dumbo Drop probably 20 times as a kid. I've definitely seen that a bunch of times as well. In retrospect, probably some pretty horrible propaganda. Well, didn't Operation Dumbo Drop wasn't it in Vietnam? And it's about like nice American soldiers in Vietnam like helping out a village? Like, isn't that basically the plot of Operation Dumbo Drop? In between like dropping napalm on villagers, they took time out of their schedule to restore a sacred elephant to a local village. In between their genocidal mass murder campaign that they were involved in. Thank you. Thanks, fellas. Isn't that true? Like, wasn't it? It's a Vietnam movie. Am I just misimagining that, or was it some like misremembering that, or is it some analogous country? Let's investigate this.
What can I do for you guys? We need an elephant.
Elephant.
Beautiful elephants, I might add, at no extra cost.
Danny Glover, Ray Liotta, Dennis Leary, and Dougie Doug.
Good cast.
In the story of an elephant who turned a top-notch army unit into a three-ring circus.
Anyone here know how to work an elephant?
I was in love with a fat woman once, but she never listened to me.
Oh, this is great.
Operation Dumbo Drop.
Who's gonna lead this delightful little operation?
I am.
Animal tranquilizer.
Well, how are we supposed to get her to swallow one of these?
She's not supposed to swallow it.
The New York Daily News calls it 8 tons of fun.
Yeah, that's funny.
And Good Morning America says it's wonderful. Lots of laughs. To get this elephant to her new village, they walked her. They floated her.
No, she's seasick.
Look out, she's gonna blow!
But when all else failed,
You cannot put an elephant on an airplane.
they decided to drop her.
Just never jumped before.
Neither is she. She looked nervous.
Own the hit comedy that's based on a true story. Operation Dumbo Drop.
If it was actually the U.S. military doing that, they'd fucking just drop the elephant out of a plane. It would explode in gore and viscera, like all in front of the fucking villagers, horrifying them, creating generational trauma for them for the rest of their lives. That's what they would actually do. Because they're suspected insurgents in the village. Like the final tremor, that's right. I like how the final sound of the trailer implies the elephant dies. It's true. But it is in Vietnam, though. And I know we're supposed to be, we're focusing on Ray Liotta's legendary career. I'm sure he's brought a charm to the lead role in the movie. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, the film stars Danny Glover and Ray Liotta as Green Berets during the Vietnam War in 1968, who attempt to transport an elephant through jungle terrain to a local South Vietnamese village, which in turn helps American forces monitor Viet Cong activity. Jesus Christ. That's so... Operation Dumbo Drop is so fucking sinister in retrospect. We need this elephant to bribe a South Vietnamese village to help us carry out our genocidal campaign of fucking brutal mass murder in Vietnam. They're carrying on Operation Phoenix at the same time as this. They're like, while we're doing this Dumbo Drop operation, we're also kidnapping thousands of left-leaning possible dissidents and imprisoning them with no charges and torturing them. We're doing this elephant thing though at the same time. I never realized he was centering Vietnam. I know. That's what I mean. I'm starting to think you don't like the US military. Not really. Not really. When I see trailers like that, I understand old people lamenting the loss of simpler times. We used to be a proper country. We used to be a proper country where we could have a lighthearted Disney family comedy about our brave troops in Vietnam. I guess it would be a welcome change if you lived in that region. It would be a welcome change from like the thousands and tons of bombs and napalm that's usually being dropped. Agent Orange and chemical warfare, all this stuff. They're like, oh, at least this time they just dropped an elephant. Usually they're dropping stuff that murders all of us. The early to mid-90s was such a huge propaganda push in like feel-good war films. That's an interesting point. I wonder if there's something like some kind of end-of-history vibes about that. We've won the Cold War. Now we can start a revisionist history. I know we've acknowledged a lot of horrors about Vietnam, but now we're going to push to whitewash that in feel-good family comedies. In the Army Now with Pauly Shore. Yeah, that was a good one too. I don't think I saw the movie, but I remember that example. I love the smell of elephant shit in the morning. It smells like victory. What's up, Squatch Drew? Sergeant Bilko, Major Payne. Remember Major Payne? Major Payne. I probably saw this many times as well. Yeah.
What we have here, lady, is a failure to communicate.
Fighting's no longer done in the battlefields, Payne.
Killing
Is that Sidney Poitier?
and business is good.
Now all the blood is shed in the halls of Congress.
Gotta be somebody needs some killing.
There's no one left. You killed them all.
Major Benson Winifred Payne needs a job.
Major Payne reporting for duty, sir.
Why?
But this isn't what he had in mind.
And we had good old Major Dad. That's right. On TV.
What's your name, girly mouth?
I have 8 weeks to turn you, gaggle of maggot, into a well-disciplined cadet unit. Tomorrow, lady, we gonna start the hard stuff.
The hard stuff?
Gotta get rid of that jerk.
These kids need a minor miracle, but what they've got is a major pain.
Hi, I'm Emily Walburn, the school counselor.
You want Rissa?
You need to be more sensitive.
What's your angle, boy?
Did I give you permission to sneeze, Opie?
No, sir.
Bleep, bleep, bleep. What are you laughing at, pig boy?
His methods may be madness.
Again, Major Payne was probably doing war crimes in the late 70s and 80s.
No pain,
in Central America.
no gain.
Boy's making me soft.
Them boys need
Don't look into what this man was up
Universal
to.
Pictures presents
Benson. No
Working with the Contras.
anymore.
Guess I gotta dig further into my repertoire.
Damon Wayans,
He's back.
Who's back?
The man who lives in my closet.
He's in there. If he's still in there, he ain't happy.
Major Pain.
Sensitive.
Major Payne has a collection of ears somewhere, for sure. Just firing off a firearm, deadly firearm in the home. That's that's a funny thing, right? When cops and troops and stuff start waving guns around in domestic situations, that's just a funny gag. That's just a funny gag. Delivering smiles and laughs to the grateful people of El Salvador. That's right. They didn't cover his main joke, breaking a person's finger to take their mind off the pain of getting shot. I must admit, I forgot about that part. Yo, everyone, come check out my stream. It's better than Rob. He's a bitch. Okay. I disagree. I disagree with that. I don't think people should go see Gabby's stream at all. Don't go. Don't go there. I don't think their stream is good. And in fact, I don't like them very much. So that's what I think about that. Isn't a lot of this because USA wasn't really doing large wars and was having huge recruitment problems in the 80s and 90s? That's probably an interesting point. I mean, we know for like obviously the CIA and the military were deeply involved in financing these films. Absolutely. I will not check out Gabby. Thank you, Squatch Drew. That's what loyalty looks like. What loyalty looks like. Stripes was a direct result of the complete collapse in U.S. military credibility. Yeah, what was that, like 82, 83? It's weird to think about like where the armed forces were at, you know, by the mid 70s, right? In the end of the Vietnam War. It's crazy reading stories about that period. Like, you realize that even if they had wanted to continue the Vietnam War going, it was just getting to a point where that's probably as close as it's ever come to just the whole military being in this very, very close to this state of just open revolt. Right? Like, I think reading the stories about Vietnam in that time are just absolutely crazy. Just officers getting killed by their own subordinates. Like, this is like a common the thing that was going on often. Just total lack of respect for anything, for any discipline or like following orders or anything like that. I think that's one thing we especially after the several decades afterwards of like pro-military propaganda we've been exposed to. I think we lose sight of the fact how close they were to completely losing their grip on the entire armed forces. Stripes is a perfect example of why Ghostbusters isn't precious. It's the 80s version of a Judd Apatow movie. They were a comedy troupe, basically, and everything they did was just for gags, and shitheads take it all too seriously. Yeah. I love those movies too, but that's totally true. And there was, like, as we talked about with Ghostbusters before, extremely right-wing movie. It's basically like the ultimate form of Reaganite propaganda. Ghostbusters. And I love Ghostbusters, one of my favorite movies of all time. It was like the first movie I saw when I was a kid that absolutely captured my imagination, that I was totally obsessed with. Yeah, the EPA is the bad guy, and the universities, right? They get fired from their cushy university jobs. Where Venkman is just like a fucking sleazeball, just like...
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick
harassing
individual,
students and stuff.
This.
Oh my goodness, Lucid Fox. Lucid, thank you for the raid. Bring it on in here, Raiders. It's Morbin time. It's Morbin time. Welcome, Raiders. Bill Murray just playing himself again. Yeah, that's right. Can you guys please stop spamming "It's Morbin time" in the chat? Unlike you guys, I'm actually here to enjoy the movie. I'm a huge fan of Morb comic, and frankly, I find it quite morbing how many Morber pretenders are here. Sorry to break it to you guys, but not once in the movie does he say "It's Morbin time." If you keep spamming, you will get morbed. Just call me Angel of the Morbin. Morbin has broken like the first Morbin. As a fan of Rob, a fan of Morb, I implore you. Thanks again for the raid, Lucid. I appreciate it. Welcome, raiders. I'm Rob. If you don't, you might know me from Twitter or Twitch or the Insurgents podcast. Or maybe you don't know me at all. That's who I am, though. Thanks for joining us. Smash the follow button. Smash the follow button, please. Especially if you want to chat. Smash that follow button. I was just watching right before you showed up. I was watching trailers for lighthearted military comedies in the 90s, such as Major Payne, and we started talking about Operation Dumbo Drop because its actor Ray Liotta passed away today. R.I.P. Ray. Tremendous actor. But we started talking about Operation Dumbo Drop, and in retrospect, how sick and weird it is, this like lighthearted family Vietnam comedy about the famously respectful and peace-loving United States military on this mission to restore a sacred animal to this South Vietnamese village in the middle of carrying out the like My Lai massacre and dropping napalm on little kids. They took time out of their busy schedules of mass murder to drop an elephant out of a plane in order to gain a foothold in this South Vietnamese village. They encouraged them to, spy on their fellow countrymen and contribute to the campaign of colonialization and of brutal violence. That's what we were talking about right before you showed up. Yeah, Lodane, that's right. R.I.P. Ray. I know. Operation Napalm didn't test well with the old focus groups. So that's what we were talking about before you showed up. Later on today, and I need to figure this out with community member Red Scary, but my official economics and Southern Affairs correspondent, Red Scary, will be joining the program, I guess whenever it's convenient. We're going to be talking about the economy. Have you heard about this thing? The economy? You're familiar with this? I don't totally understand what it is. Some say that it's of vital importance and it controls a lot of things about our daily lives. Anyway, I don't know what it is, but Red Scary is going to come on and talk about, are we in the early stages of economic collapse? The crypto crash that's going on, all this stuff. It's in the Bible, I'm pretty sure, yeah. Okay, so Red Scary's working from home, so we can do that whatever. That's what we're going to be doing today. We'll do that in the, let's aim for like 2. How about that? Let's aim for 2 p.m. for our Scarynomics segment. I did a previous Scarynomics segment a few weeks ago, and it was the only time on this stream that I've ever fucked up the audio to the stream. So when I tried to watch it back, there was no audio playing. The only time that's ever happened was Red Scary's previous appearance. Because you hate women financial correspondents. It's not true. That is not true. Scrubbed Red Scare from the archives. That's right. It was a Stalinist purge. And honestly, Red Scare, like what you were saying earlier about the public works and the corruption, and it seems like that's when you need, sometimes you do need a good Stalinist purge, don't you? Right? Obviously, you need to have strong unions, and it should be difficult for people to lose their jobs. But there also needs to be some function, some mechanism in place, so when this corruption starts happening, you can just go in there with a good old Stalinist purge and get rid of the bad actors in there. Corbyn should have purged. Oh, if they let me go on a Stalinist purge in my workplace, I know exactly the MF I would purge. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that you've got a list. A list of potential suspects. Don't worry, nothing like that for this community exists, though. Don't worry about that. I haven't kept lists of any of you. I haven't looked into any details of personal information about you. I don't have an idea of who needs to be purged and who's going to stay. Haven't even thought about it. Hasn't even crossed my mind. It's okay, I'm the trot. Please ice pick me, Daddy Rousseau. Little too enthusiastic about that. It's just a fun thought experiment. That's right. Thank you. Sam, I like you, but you're definitely on the list. This is a great stream. All right, I'm happy to hear it. Like you've mentioned lists before. I'm suspicious about this new claim. Not familiar with what you're referring to there, unfortunately. I'm gonna crack open my good old Diet Pepsi. As much as police budgets are a problem, police unions might be the biggest challenge to local democracies. It certainly seems like they're in charge more than like actual elected officials are in most of these or all of these cities, doesn't it? Rob notes who doesn't applaud at the end of his segments. That's right. Chin chin, everyone. Elected officials are terrified of police unions. It certainly seems like... That's right, Quinn Better. That's right. Sometimes I switch it up. Okay, I'm not one of these big... I mean, I prefer Diet Coke. I went to the grocery store. They didn't have any. I went with Diet Pepsi instead. Sometimes it's a nice little treat. And in fact, Old Dutch... Okay, this was a great segue, and I'm happy you brought this up. Because we have to talk... At least, I don't want to spend the whole day on this. But we do have to talk about... Again, we talked about the mass shooting in Uvalde, and the absolute relentless horror of that a lot yesterday. We don't need to go down that. We don't need to spend the entire day talking about that again. We do have to talk about, though, the emerging details of how the police in that situation acted. Because the stories that were coming out last night are... I think even if you're cynical about the police, were shocking even to me to read about. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, because the story yesterday, as it was coming out, it was pretty clear that, you know, the police were there. The police were there when this happened. According to them, the police themselves in Uvalde, this town that has, like, you know, how many thousand people live in this city? 16,000, something like that? Who have this police force that eats up 40% of their budget each year. this school district where this happens have their own police service. They got 5 police officers and a security guard. So what came out yesterday is that they actually engaged this mass shooter before he entered the school. So they engaged the shooter before he enters the school, and then they did not follow him in there. And then he goes in and murders 19 people, mostly little kids and a few teachers. And I think that's upsetting even in of itself. Like, that was the information that we had yesterday. Here's a good thread on the police's actions. Okay, thanks. That's the information that we had yesterday. And then as more information came out, of course, the police, as they always do, they're just lying about this. They immediately lie. They say, oh, he had body armor. The shooter had body armor, so we didn't want to go pursue him or whatever, which turned out to be not true at all. And then there's reporting last night that came out that these cops, like, not only were they there, not only did they prevent to stop this shooting, not only were they there outside the school, not going in while the shooting that was taking place, but, and this is the thing that kind of broke me reading about this. The fact that there was parents of the kids there that heard about this shooting and came to the school and were like begging the police to go in and stop the mass murder from happening, and literally being held back and detained by the police that were there. They're brandishing tasers around the parents that showed up, who were like begging the police to go in, and who were like, there's this fucking horrifying story about this father whose daughter wound up being one of the murder victims, begging the police to go in and trying to organize other parents to like rush into the school because the police weren't doing it, and they didn't let them. This motherfucker's in the school for 40 minutes. They wait for backup, which is apparently against all the training that these cops are supposed to get in these situations. So not only were they there and failed to prevent it, but they literally prevented parents from going in. Like, there's this... Do you do links? I have a very unfortunate update to even this recap. I mean, yeah, you can send me whatever you want. I'll take a look at it. He locked himself in the room with kids, and all the kids who died were in that one classroom. Yeah. I haven't... Yeah, I have a feeling I know what you're sending me here. Yeah, I saw the update from Matt Novak. Hold on a sec. Because I saw also that there's video. And in all honesty, there's video that was taken while the shooting was happening, while these cops are like detaining parents. There's literally video of them struggling with a parent on the floor. And I can't watch it. I'm sure it would be good to talk about in this context. But there's a whole 2-minute video of parents like begging cops to go into the school and not being allowed to, and I honestly just can't look at it. Okay, and this is I barely even believe this. Okay, so first of all, you have at least one additional kid died directly because the cops were incompetent. When the cops came, the cop said, "Yell if you need help." One of the persons in my class said help. The shooter overheard and he came in and shot her. So the cops that did actually go in ended up getting another kid killed that didn't have to, that was hiding. And this just I don't even want to believe this. This thing about how some of the cops apparently got their own kids out of the school, and I would like to see some confirmation on that, because that just seems like that's just beyond my capability to even like understand. You know? We can take a look at this thread here. Let's review the reported performance of the Uvalde police and CPB response team on Tuesday. Waited 35 to 60 minutes before entering the school while kids bled out. Tased and arrested parents begging them to go in and attempting to rescue their kids themselves. When they did enter the school, they went to rescue their own kids first rather than deal with the shooter. Proved incapable of opening a locked door to the room where the shooter was, so they had a school employee do it for them with a key. Armed school resource officer failed to prevent shooter from entering school. Uvalde SWAT team had done a walkthrough of the school in February to prepare for just such a situation. Outside observers saying Uvalde police ignored every lesson learned since Columbine. Lied about the timeline. Police is 40% of Uvalde's budget. And yeah, here's the video. I can't look at that. There's just no way. There's no way I can look at that. Initial reports by police that they pursued and pinned down the shooter in a classroom were false. In reality, the shooter had plenty of time, locked himself inside a classroom where he carried out this mass murder. Of kids, of little kids. I mean, that's the amazing thing about seeing the right-wing response for this as well, just saying like more, like the whole thing of Ted Cruz, there needs to be no windows, one door in the school, locked door with an armed guard in front of every school. And it's like, that's literally the case in this case. There is an armed officer there that failed to prevent this from happening. They literally just think they're part of a special superior class above and more important than any average civilian. Well, this is like, it's impossible to try and understand what's going on in anyone's mind that's doing this. It makes more sense when you view them as being an occupying force in communities and not actually there to protect lives or save innocent people or even to prevent crime. Right? They're great at showing up after these things happen and waving around their assault rifles after. I saw the vid earlier. It's horrifying how the pigs prevent parents and let the guy kill those kids. Yeah, there's no way I can watch that. They fucked up at best or are complicit at worst. I mean, it looked yesterday like they fucked up. It's now looking like a major scandal, like they actively increased the body count in this situation and made it significantly worse than it could have been, despite having the opportunity to stop it from happening at all. Imagine if the people we were accountable to at our job caught us being this incompetent. I think this is the really fucked up contradiction too about America, and which more it feels like more and more people should be waking up to. But just the devotion to venerating cops above all else, above all, like talk about public employees and how they're not respected. Obviously, not true in the case of police officers who are meant to be venerated and worshipped regardless of their level of incompetence, regardless of their level of corruption, regardless of their level of criminality. We just have to revere and worship these cops and thank them every single day for their brave actions. And I mean, for me, the George Floyd protests, you know, I do a podcast with Jordan Ewell. Jordan painstakingly collected a lot of the footage of police violence during those protests. Which I feel like that's the really fucked up thing, is that led to no reform whatsoever. I mean, the protests were about police violence in the first place. It was a nonstop stream of police violence every single night. And since that time, the narrative, even on like the liberal side, has been like, defund the police activists, help the right. We need to ensure that we're giving cops more money and training. They're just proclaiming this week, which is the 2-year anniversary of the George Floyd killing, National Police Week. Amy Klobuchar just put out a tweet this week saying the all the brave law enforcement officers we lost this year, our record-breaking number of law enforcement officers, without mentioning that the fucking vast majority of these cops who died in the line of duty, quote unquote in the line of duty this year, died of COVID because they refused to wear masks or get vaccinated. And it's the 2-year anniversary of George Floyd. They're making it National Police Week. And that's what I think more like this contradiction is going to be difficult to maintain when the open, obvious corruption and criminality and cowardice of what we saw crashes into this like nonstop worship, this nonstop cop worship, which is just promoted day in, day out across the ideological spectrum. And I feel like this is something that people have to wake up to this, right? Like that's the disturbing thing is that I thought, in retrospect, this was very naive, but I thought after the George Floyd protests that more people would start to get this idea. When you see just the rampant violence every single night, police violence, those are police riots. Again, I know the narrative has shifted to, defund the police activists are going too far, and also it was the BLM protesters that rioted and burned down these cities. That's been the narrative on the right, which of course Democrats and liberals have just like basically internalized and accepted themselves. But those were police riots night after night. Those were peaceful protests that were being escalated by armed, trigger-happy stormtroopers wearing military gear, waving around assault rifles, driving tanks in communities. That's what escalated those protests every single night into riots. And the cops every day were driving around, shooting rubber bullets out of cars, beating the shit out of journalists. They kicked that old man and busted that old man's head open, which would just, of course, they determined the other day that they did nothing wrong in that situation. It was just dozens of examples of this every night, and it had no impact in this this relentless narrative that we must always worship and respect cops, and that defunding the police is some radical idea that's just going to destroy communities. And defunding the police, I mean, that's exactly what's coming up in this situation. You see the budget, you see the Uvalde city budget, which is the vast majority of which is going to this police force. They're sharing images online of their like SWAT team. Here's the budget. Here's the Uvalde city budget. And if you want to, I would encourage anyone, no matter where you live, if in America or Canada, to go and look at your local city budget, and it's going to look something like this. You know, this is widespread across our society. This is the Uvalde city budget, where everything is going to police and animal control, while, everything else, streets, parks, recreation, civic center, fire marshal, planning and development, finance, administration, everything else, doesn't get anywhere near the same attention. Let me just try to find the image of the Uvalde SWAT team. Like, again, this is a community of 13,000 people. 13,000 people, 40% of the municipal budget. You have a fucking occupying military force in your community for ostensibly this exact reason, to prevent the mass murder of kids. Like, if there's one thing that you'd think that you would need this type of like occupying military force in your community. And they can't do that. Not only do they not do it, but they actively make the situation worse. So people say, what, you want to defund police? You want to abolish police? What are all these violent criminals roaming around? And this is the exact point, is that these police unions throughout America and Canada have just dominate local politics to the extent they're literally armed gangs that are impossible to actually be held responsible by elected officials. Like, elected officials are fucking terrified of these people, of ever confronting them. And the moment anyone says one bad thing about them, of course they go in on these childish temper tantrums, complaining about how disrespected they are and how dangerous their job is, when it's one of the least dangerous jobs compared to dangerous jobs where people are hurt or killed. It's like, doesn't even rank in the top 20. And that's what I mean. It's the collision between the rampant incompetence and corruption and criminality, and how that meets this relentless worship of police, institutionalized, bipartisan. And by the way, here's the scanner. They're literally just covering their own asses. There's 18 minutes of audio missing from the police scanner. While the shooting was happening, you have the police scanner information is all widely available for what they were talking about. See 11:10 to 11:40, 11:40 to 11:52, and then 12:10 to 12:40, 12:40 to 1. It just goes on and on like that. There's 18 missing minutes while they're, of course, getting their stories straight, because, of course, this is an organized criminal enterprise. This is a gang. This is an armed gang. The San Francisco Pride Parade, cops marching on overtime pay thing is an example of this. The mayor's siding with the cops. Yeah, of course. And again, this happens in the most progressive cities in America and Canada. Montreal is another example. Montreal, Valérie Plante campaigned on reigning in the Montreal Police Department, which is one of the worst police departments in North America and most corrupt, and of course has done none of that. I was a pizza delivery driver as a teen. More dangerous job than cops. Give me a medal like they got. Absolutely. We should actually venerate and thank pizza delivery drivers or all other food delivery service workers who have a more dangerous and more important job to society. Oh, hey, Afro-Socialist, I didn't see you in there. I've been on a kind of a rant here. This is really sick too as well. Look at this. This is the first thing this motherfucker says. Look at this. First thing this motherfucker says before anything about the kids or the families that are the devastated kids and families.
I want to acknowledge the brave men and women of law enforcement that showed up to the scene, that actually were involved in the scene, that actually made entry into this school and saved more lives. That, of course, we lost 18, but I want to praise those brave men and women of law enforcement. Also, offer our condolences on behalf of Texas Department of Public Safety to the families, to the victims, and the entire Uvalde community. So what we do know right now that the suspect was involved in a family disturbance earlier on the day with his grandmother, in which he shot his grandmother. From that point on, what we do know is that local law enforcement received a call of a crash and a man with a gun.
Yeah, by the way, also, yeah.
At that point, local law enforcement responded to the school. The suspect made entry into the school, and as soon as he made entry into the school, he started shooting children, teachers, whoever was in his way. He was shooting everybody. We had, of course, as I mentioned, brave law enforcement made entry into that school, exchanged gunfire with the
45 minutes later.
Body armor. Several police officers were shot. At that point, we did have a tactical law enforcement team arrive on scene. They made entry. They were also met with gunfire by the suspect, but they were actually able to shoot the suspect, and now the suspect is deceased. As of right now, we do have 18 children confirmed that are deceased, as well as 2 adults, one of those being a teacher from the school.
And we've also heard word that Border Patrol agent was struck with gunfire. A few officers shot. We've heard that some
He did not have body
officers
armor.
went into school to get their kids out. Can you talk about that?
Right. So we do know, Vanessa, right now that there was some police officers, families trying to get their children out of the school because it was an active shooter situation right now. It's a terrible situation right now. And of course, just as we mentioned, the loss of life, it's just terrible. It's a terrible tragedy right now that took place. But again, we got to keep acknowledging those brave men and women that actually were there on scene that met this suspect. And of course, we know that they were met with gunfire. Some of them were shot. But at the end of this, the suspect was shot and is now deceased. The threat is now neutralized.
And we're hearing
The brave law enforcement officers.
his home was less than a mile away from here. Did you find any other guns, any other ammunition? We've heard maybe about.
Sick. Absolutely sickening. Cops exist to protect the powerful and wealth and property. It isn't a failure from their perspective. That's right. When you understand the function of the police in capitalist society as being an occupying force whose purpose is for social control and protecting private property, their actions then make sense in this context. I guess that's the fucking whiny bullshit that I really hate too. It's like where it's like, you know, it's the most dangerous job. And they all this idea, like, I never know if I'm going to go home. I never know if I'm going to go home at the end of the shift. They're all fixated on this. You guys got to go home at the end of the shift. And the idea that, like, no asshole, listen, this is what you signed up for. You signed up to be a hero and and understand that there's going to be situations where that may require you to risk your life to help people, to help little kids. If you're not comfortable with that, don't be a police officer in the first place. Don't sign up. I have zero sympathy for these guys that are like, oh, I just wanted to go home. Like, as did these little small children inside the school that were being murdered while you were just sitting on your fucking ass, waving around tasers at parents. Nobody knows that, and you get paid 3 times as much as the most of us. I mean, that's the thing about these city budgets. It's ludicrous, and like we were talking about, like Quinn Better was talking about, organizing everything around these like overtime payments to literally just milk as much of the city budget as you possibly can. This complete institutionalized effort to manipulate overtime in this way to just absolutely ensure that like everyone is making as absolute much money as they possibly can from the city budget. Like, again, that's why last year when you saw police in California evicting homeless families from like homes that they were occupying, empty homes, around Thanksgiving weekend last year, you saw cops on Thanksgiving throwing these families into the street. Moms and kids who were just trying to have 4 walls and a roof over their head. Because you do it on the holiday weekend, because then you're getting paid triple overtime or whatever. Even though it's more expensive to your community to deal with homelessness in this way. Rather than just let people occupy empty buildings or giving people homes, you're paying more money. You're paying cops triple overtime so that they can throw the people on the street during a holiday. You know, it's not about money. It's not about austerity. It costs more to deal with these social issues this way. But because police budgets have just manipulated everything in this way, it's the only possible way we have to do anything. All these kind of services, which should be getting outsourced to, this funding should be going to housing. It should be going to social workers. But it just all goes to cops. And all these problems just continue to get worse. While none of the systemic causes of the problems are addressed in any way. Except more police. And if you don't think they're getting ready for the tumultuous times of this coming decade, they are. They're all training in urban warfare because they know exactly who their enemies are and what their purpose is. If you piss off cops, they threaten to stop showing up to your big events. The fucking propaganda in media is a major factor in duping the American. I mean, literally turn on your TV any night of the week. Any night of the week. And just look at the non-stop flow of pro-police content. Chicago PD and Law and Order and NYPD Blue. I mean, that's not an example because that's more gritty, but you know what I mean? It's just every single night. Every single night. Relentless. Biggest newspaper in the world, New York Times, puts pro-police articles out daily. Toronto city councilors won't publicly support defund because they know cops won't show up to calls in their wards. This is what I mean. So they completely dominate all these city budgets. And then it's immediately become absolutely toxic for any politician now to talk about defunding police. I do not want to know why this is trending. I do not dare to click that. Do not dare to click that link. Anyway, I have one more clip to look at about this. Again, I didn't want to spend the whole day on it, but I wanted to make sure we talked about this subject. This fucking weasel.
Who are never going to get to kiss their child goodnight again.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important. It's at the heart of the issue.
I get that that's where the media likes to go.
No, it's not. It's where many of the people we've talked to here like to go.
The proposals from Democrats in the media, inevitably, when some...
And this is how fucking right-wing fascist America is. Sky News is not a progressive liberal outlet. Sky News is like a neoliberal to right-wing media outlet. That's how fucking completely off the rails right-wing America is. That these British conservatives come across as being these bleeding heart liberals, whether it's him or like Andrew Neil talking to Ben Shapiro. Imagine getting owned like this by a British person. Like they literally invented white supremacy and you're over here getting dogged by them. Yeah, it's the Fox News of Britain. That's how fucking outrageously right-wing America is.
But it's important. It's at the heart of the issue.
I get that that's where the media likes to go.
No, it's not. It's where many of the people we've talked to here like to go.
The proposals from Democrats in the media, inevitably, when some violent psychopath murders people.
A violent psychopath who's able to get a weapon so easily.
You can't really escape this.
With 2 AR-15s.
If you want to stop violent crime, the proposals the Democrats have, none of them would have stopped this.
But why does this only happen in your country? I really think that's what many people around the world they cannot fathom. Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism so awful?
You know, I'm sorry you think American exceptionalism is awful.
This motherfucker's Canadian.
You got your political agenda.
No, it's honestly,
God love you.
Senator, it's not. I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an
honestly, again, these are right-wing media figures. This is a right-wing media operation. This exposes not just how right-wing America is, but how fucking pathetic and subservient American media is. No American journalists talk to politicians like this ever. Maybe left-wing politicians if you're badgering them about how much their social spending thing is going to cost or whatever. No American mainstream journalists treat politicians in this way. None. You know, it's just pathetic. Again, this is Sky News. This is not a progressive media outlet. This guy's, you've got a liberal political agenda. They literally don't. Anyway, look, this is going to really enrage you where Ted goes after this.
American problem?
It is just an American problem, sir.
That's what I mean about the media, though. It's like the media in America, especially when it comes to the police, not only are elected officials completely subservient to the police unions, but so is media. all the media is in America and Canada, frankly, are stenographers for the state and by extension, for the police. Like, that was during the George Floyd protest. There was this big sort of reckoning in the media of like, we need to start treating things differently. We got to stop just like writing things cops say, writing it down uncritically and repeating it. And of course, nothing ever changed. Nothing ever changed about that whatsoever. But you've got an entire media class that's just devoted, and like they know this out of complete habit, to just repeat verbatim uncritically what police say.
Mr. Cruz, why is America the only country that faces this kind of mass shooting?
But you can't answer that. You can't answer that, can you, sir? You can't answer that. Why is this country...
Why is it that people come from all over the world to America? Because it's the freest, most prosperous, safest country on earth.
This is a sick man. It's the safest country. While there's 9 and 10-year-old kids murdered. This American exceptionalist bullshit. You know, it just makes me absolutely sick to my stomach to look at this. And it's the classic American argument too of like, why does everyone want to come here? Why does everyone want to come here? Well, maybe because you fucking ruined and destabilized everywhere else in the world, and people need to go someplace where they can like live. How about that? Maybe that's the reason. Maybe that's part of the reason. Why do people immigrate to America from Mexico or El Salvador or Nicaragua or Venezuela or Chile or Colombia? Why do they come from Afghanistan? Why do they come from Yemen? It's not that fucking complicated. America creates these refugees. America creates these immigrants. And then it treats them like shit, puts them in concentration camps, and then brags about how everyone around the world wants to come to America because it's this bastion of freedom and safety and prosperity. Literally funding death squads around the world, sanctioning most of the world, and committing mass genocide. And true very coded language given the demographics of Uvalde. Very good point, yeah. Look at the expression on his face, too. Just a piece of shit. Same guy who left families to freeze to death while he vacationed in Mexico. That's right. It is the same guy. They hate us because they were enslaved by us. You know, these are sick people, though. You got to play the last line? Okay. I'm going to go back one more time.
I can't answer that. Why is this country...
Why is it that people come from all over the world to America? Because it's the freest, most prosperous, safest country on earth.
It may be the freest, it may be the most popular...
Why are our kids dying in school?
Piece of shit. Just a huge piece of shit. Just Gusano things. Just Gusano things, that's right. And Beto could not beat this guy. Honestly, I'm torn about Beto. I know this became contentious in the chat yesterday. You know, I don't think Democrats have the answers to these things. I don't think they do. I do appreciate that Beto is like out there. At least Beto O'Rourke is doing more than like the vast majority of other liberal elected officials just by like not following this rule of like civility and decorum. Like, at least, you know, I respect that he's at least doing something, but framing this as some kind of like bipartisan, some partisan issue that Democrats are going to fix, I don't think that's just not an option. Beto frothing at the mouth seeing his name in the news again. Is he saying anything about defunding the police? I don't think he is, and in fact, I think he's just talking about taking away people's guns, which is just making him the most fucking unpopular person that will never actually win an election. Dem leadership is the problem. Pelosi, Schumer, all these old rich bastards, they don't care. Well, like I was saying, the Democratic Party, like Amy Klobuchar, just pronounced this week, she did this tweet about it this week is National Police Week. Take the police guns too. And that's the exact, when you talk about restricting, disarming the American population, the police are going to have to be the center of that. Right? Like, it's the idea of taking away people's guns is never going to work until the police guns are taken away first and foremost. They're the largest violent criminal gang in the country. They need to be disarmed more than anyone. Leadership actively working against it. I mean, to say, like, look, that's it. That's why it can never be framed as this partisan thing. Just to vote for Democrats so we can fix the gun laws. First of all, it's not just, maybe if you, like we talked about yesterday, we talked about this on the podcast as well, there are some gun laws which I'm sure could limit the ability of certain people to get guns. The problem goes much deeper than that, though. And when you talk about policing, the problem with policing specifically, and this example of this horrific shooting is, I think, the ultimate example of why police do need to be disarmed and defunded, and why these heavily militarized police departments across the country don't actually solve any issues. They don't solve crime. They don't prevent crime from happening. They don't make anyone safer. They make people less safe. And you've got the Democratic Party establishment openly, throwing community defund the police activists under the bus and campaigning on and delivering more money for police. More money for police. More. Joe Biden literally just said, if you've got leftover COVID funds, give it to the police. So it's like, excuse me if I don't get all that excited about these kind of possible partisan activity around this, or someone making good speeches. The Democratic Party is deeply implicated in this problem getting worse. Okay, folks, in a few minutes, we are going to bring on community member Red Scary to talk about the economy. I got to raise some funds before that. You know how the police eat up those city budgets, and frankly, here's something that is a good thing to fund. Then there needs to be more funding for this, which is this Twitch channel. I'm going to take a few moments just to try to get make some headway on the sub goal. After that, we will be bringing on community member Red Scary. But
you can
if you just joined the show,
have good old Rob
the first time,
talk you through all this.
If you've just joined the show for the first time, hold on, I'm going to put on I'm going to give you the hard pitch here.
You can count on me. You're going to have.
Okay, if you could just hold off on the subscribing for just a moment, please and thank you.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
If it is your first time watching this stream, please consider subscribing to TRRS on twitch.tv. Get access to some of the best emotes on this entire platform. Become part of the community. Join the Discord server. This is one of the best communities on this entire platform of Twitch. if you subscribe to the channel, not only do you get the emotes, the wonderful emotes, not available anywhere else on this platform, you're also involved in one of the most dynamic, exciting communities on this platform.
Good old Rob.
TRRS, Friendship Triangle. This is a patented system, 2-dimensional, triangle-shaped, which allows you access to the base level,
to mark up the
Chaos
size
Zone,
of the account.
and if you gift more than 5 subs, puts you right into that elite level of the Friendship Triangle system, Twitch's only patented trickle-down clout system, tiered friendship, Shai-Hulud themed reward system. Subscribe to the channel. You don't want to be one of these lowly saps on the outside of the non-subscribers. Okay? Of course, we appreciate the lurkers and the non-subscribers. We appreciate you, but you could be doing more. And unfortunately, when you are not a subscriber, you do not have access to this wonderful community
of the Friendship Triangle.
Nor do you have access to the trickle-down clout benefits, which, as you can see, are most concentrated in that elite level.
You can count on me. You're going to have a good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Okay, now, I'm going to take a moment to say thank you to Tyler Madison. Thank you for the 2 gifted subs, Tyler. Very much appreciated. Thank you, Irate Lump, for the 17 months resub at Tier 1. Thank you, DRP50, for the gifted sub. Thank you, Black Cat Paradise, for the gifted sub as well. Thank you, Unintendo, for the 100 friend coin. Thank you very much to Comrade Social Distancing, extremely generous community member, for the 2 gifted subs. Thank you, Comrade Social Distancing. Thank you so much to Metal Dipshit for the 5 gifted subs. Thank you, Metal Dipshit.
Become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Thank you to Unintendo as well for gifting a Tier 1 sub. Thank you, Unintendo. Thank you so much to Squatch Drew as well. Valued community member, Squatch Drew, one of the most elite members of this community. Thank you, Squatch Drew, for the 5 gifted subs as well. I thoroughly enjoy my trickle-down gout. No, I don't want that to trickle down to anybody, okay? I'll tell you that. As someone who suffers from certain medical issues, I would never impart that on anyone else. There's some weird air pressure things happening right now outside, and it feels like my feet got ran over by a car. It's extremely unpleasant. But of course, here I am, despite being in physical pain, here I am day in, day out, providing entertainment and content for each and every one of you. And beyond that, beyond the entertaining content, it's a sense of community. It's alleviation from the constant sense of existential dread and alienation and isolation that we're all feeling in this futuristic dystopian hellscape that we're all forced to participate in each and every day.
To talk you through all this.
Thank you, Alana Nana, for the 4 gifted subs. Thank you, Alana. Very much appreciated. Side effects of joining the Friendship Triangle may include radicalization and understanding of dialectical materialism, and appreciation for the Twilight movie series, and more cursed Rob face swaps than you can shake a stick at. It'll piss off your parents. Absolutely, they hate this. Parents hate it.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Rob, did you hear about Kino for Comrades was last night? Biggest turnout yet. Thanks for the heat.
Of course, thank you, Doc Hollywood, for the 200 friend coin. Happy to hear Doc Hollywood's specially curated film series, Kino for Comrades, which is available only in the TRRS Discord server, only for community members. Happy to hear that the latest installment, last night, was a success. Thank you to Doc Hollywood, and if you want to be part of the Kino for Comrades film series, specially curated community event, please join the Discord server and check out the events tab in the Discord server. All kinds of amazing events, from reading groups, theory reading groups, Kino for Comrade, other movie nights. We've got multiple movie night series. All kinds of great stuff going on in there, only in the TRRS Discord server. We got Kino. We got the Mission Impossible series starting up in the movie night Discord. We've got Predator, which is actually the night or two after, I believe it's the night after my birthday. Which is exciting for me because it's one of my favorite movies. Thank you, GMO Radio. Thank you, GMO Radio, for the gifted sub. Very much appreciated, GMO Radio. Folks, we are 1 minute and 30 seconds away from finishing this hype train. We're already at level 5. And I just remind you that a few more generous viewers could not only finish out this hype train, but could, in fact, get this episode to hit the sub goal. It's within reach now, and I know we can do it. Thank you, Hogue Like Woe, for the gifted sub. Very first gifted sub in the channel for Hogue Like Woe. Thank you, Hogue Like Woe. Very much appreciated, sir. Or madam. Or non-binary person. We are 1 minute away, folks. 1 minute away from the end of this hype train. In the next segment, it's your last chance. It actually isn't your last chance, because the show will continue, and I also encourage people to subscribe later as well. But for now, it is your last opportunity to become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle. Oh my goodness gracious. Valued community member, Don Darkzoni.
Use the computer to mark
Thank you very, very much to Don Darkzoni.
I'm getting word it is Morbin time. Morb activated.
For the extremely generous 9 gifted subs and all the support you've shown this channel and community, Don Darkzoni. Thank you very much. And thank you also to Sophisticated Pills for the 200 friend coin. It's Morbin time indeed. Morb activated. Friends, thank you very, very much for contributing to the channel, for supporting the show. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much. This has been the Rob Pitch Zone. This is the Pitch Zone, where I pitch people on joining this community. What a highly successful pitch segment. Thank you again, everybody. Very much appreciated. That music, that's the music to NHL 95 on Sega Genesis. It's really good for that kind of pitch, that like infomercial pitch thing. How many subs to do a whole stream as Pitch Zone? I mean, that would be a lot of pitching. It's hard to do that voice for like 4 straight hours. My heart is racing. I need a cigarette. Thank you everyone for contributing. It's seriously very much appreciated. It's a huge honor to be able to do this show and to have such a wonderful community around the show that supports the work that we do here. Really great stuff. Thank you very much, everyone. I really, really appreciate it. Talk about overthrowing capitalism for 2 hours as Pitch Zone. It does kind of throw off the algorithm if you talk about like violently overthrowing the ruling class, but in that voice and with that music, it just kind of seems like a joke. Here, this goes out to the entire community. This goes out to the entire community after that highly successful Pitch Zone segment. Not this. Not this. Sorry, I didn't realize the music was still playing. Not this, but this.
Wow. Okay, Rob. Seriously, wow.
Okay. So I'm going to take a brief break. Sorry if I'm messing with the schedule, Red Scare. I'm just going to take a brief, 3-4 minute break, just really quickly to stretch my legs. I will be back in just 5 minutes with community member Red Scary, official TRRS Economics and Southern Affairs correspondent. I didn't say scratch your legs. I think you misheard me, Squatch True. Unfortunately for you. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. I'll be right back. Okay, I will not be long. Don't go anywhere. This next segment with Reg Scary is going to be extremely good. Don't go anywhere. Back. I'm back. Hello. Someone just responded to this tweet of mine from 2018, which I had forgotten about. It's funny, you tweet things when you have like 3,000 followers that Not that I disagree with now, but maybe not quite as careful about certain words and actions as when you have 90,000 or whatever. Someone just responded to this tweet though, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Forgot about that one. Clearly satire. Clearly. This is why I can never run for public office. I think a lot of the time, like, from 2018 on, you know, I talked about how much I hate having real jobs. I was like, if I just post all kinds of wild shit, no one will ever hire me at a real job again. This is part of my motivation for saying and doing some of the things that I did. Can they suspend this? It was too spicy for the breach. Can they suspend an account over this? It's definitely more difficult to suspend me because I'm verified. The only time I've ever been suspended on Twitter, and I've lied about doing illegal voting, and I've said all kinds of fucked up shit. The only time I've ever been suspended from Twitter was because I called Dan Crenshaw an eyeless fuck. All these classic tweets are grandfathered in as long as Kulinski's tweet about certain people being hungry stays up. This will hold true. Very true. Not sure if you saw this, but the Uvalde shooting somehow got worse. What's the latest update? Excuse me. Oh, I actually did see that in the chat when I was talking earlier. Yeah, the husband of one of the teachers that was killed had a heart attack and died. Fucking everything about this is just the most horrific thing. It's just the horror of it is just staggering to try and wrap your mind around. Okay, so here's what I have to do. I'm going to tweet about this upcoming segment, and then Red Scary is going to join us in the voice chat, and we're going to talk about the good old economy. I'm just finding a good economy meme. I'm just finding an economy meme that I can use. This might work. Red Scare, if you want to go ahead and join the Join the voice chat. I'll bring you on in 1 sec.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Who's this? Slightly Tethered. Thank you very much for the 8 months of Tier 1. Thank you, Slightly. Okay, that's tweeted. That's tweeted. Let me get some... Let's get some stock footage going. Okay, and here's Red Scary. Okay. Red Scary, everyone. Wait, hold on. I just gotta do the title. It's gotta do the title. Gonna do the title, and we're good to go. Hopefully this one will not be lost to the sands of time. Okay. Hello, Red Scary. Are you there?
I am indeed here.
Hey, what's going on?
You know, time theft.
Yeah. We love our time theft.
That's right.
You're working from home today?
Yeah, I just decided it would be easier than, because I would have to like use Discord on my phone and then call in with my AirPods.
Right.
I was something wouldn't work out if I was in my office. So.
And then your colleagues come in, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And it's like, oh, "I'm doing a really important meeting right now, actually, and I can't do any actual work that we're doing right now. Very important stuff happening right here."
Yeah, I would have to be like, "Oh, sorry, I'm in a meeting."
Yeah.
And then when later they're like, "Oh, what was that meeting about?" I'd be like,
Don't worry about it. Yeah. It's not important.
I just changed the subject immediately. Did you hear? I just make up a rumor about a colleague.
The colleague that you want to purge. You're gonna start
right.
poisoning the well early.
That's right.
Well, it's cool that you have work from home day anyway. You just had a big, highly successful public works week, right? We talked about it on Friday.
We did, yeah. If you missed the late night stream, you missed out on some public works content.
Yeah, that was really cool. I actually was watching back. I looked at that video of the amazing crane operator, which did actually play. I didn't think I got the sound, and then when I watched it back, I noticed there was sound playing. So we did get your hooting and hollering.
That's right.
Was included in the segment. Yeah, you can't have one without the other.
No, the Southern video is complete without hooting and hollering.
Yeah.
As we all know.
You probably had a nice cup of sweet tea after.
I actually literally did have sweet tea after for lunch, which was catered barbecue.
Nice. That sounds great. That sounds really good stuff.
Big Papa's barbecue. Incredible.
Oh man, that sounds wonderful. That sounds really good, like really good stuff. Okay, well, happy you're able to join us again for another edition of Scarynomics, when a community member, Red Scary, breaks down the ones and zeros of the thing that we know as the economy, which governs all our lives. I'm looking forward to this one. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. No, I was gonna say I saw your tweet. I am nervous that people think I'm like a crypto expert, because like it is really like the one area that I like try to understand, and I'm just like, this is all nonsense and scam. Like,
But I think,
is all.
Yeah, understanding that it is nonsense and accepting that is part of becoming an expert.
Yes.
Right? Because that's just the inescapable conclusion about all of it.
Yeah.
So we may end up going over some stuff that we went over last time, considering I accidentally purged you from the records. But
That is
I mean,
true. Yeah. I mean, I have my notes from last time that I had prepared. So.
Okay. Well, we might have to go over some of that again. But I think talking about the crypto stuff first and foremost is interesting, right? And it's like, it seems a little bit like what is going on in these crypto markets right now, and these big crashes. Of course, you saw the collapse of Tether the other day, which we talked about a lot on the show.
That was Terra. We're waiting on the.
Oh, okay. Terra. Yeah, Terra Luna. Sorry, yeah, Terra Luna, and then Tether is the next domino to fall.
Tether is the one that everybody has their eyes on, because it's the one that's very heavily. It has a lot of Bitcoin on its balance sheet that it uses to back Tether, which it mints and then buys Bitcoin. So it's like a big circular loop of money printing.
Sure. Sounds very sustainable.
Very real and normal. And it's very good when your economic regulators literally just let anyone invent a money printer.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yes.
And we love that.
So the question is this crypto crash, in your estimation, and again, I know you're not an expert, but you read the Financial Times and you pay attention to this stuff and have a capacity for understanding it much more than I do, certainly, or the average person. So that's why I'm officially making you my expert. Not everyone knows that you're not like an official crypto person. Like, we think we all understand that. But is the ongoing like tumultuousness in these crypto markets, and even in crypto coins that were supposed to be stable, literally quote called stable coins, is this just a sign of this one particular aspect of the fake economy kind of collapsing, or is it a possible sign for the real economic recession, which a lot of experts seem to believe is directly on the horizon?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, certainly, like, in times of like uncertainty, people are going to leave the most high risk sorts of investments first. And crypto certainly is bad. But the thing to remember about crypto is that, like, most of the people who do the trading, it's a very small group of people who do most of the trading. And then that's sort of like, so like a small group of people do a bunch of trading to run the price up on a crypto so they make money. The big gain in the price convinces a lot of rubes to join in on the scheme, and then they dump all the coin. That's like the traditional sort of cycle of a crypto pump and dump, which is a very classic type of security scheme that people do. And so it's difficult to say how much connections it has to the real economy. These stable coins are very interesting, I think, because they do claim to have stuff on their balance sheets.
Yeah.
Like corporate paper, like I think Tether is now saying that they have like El Salvador bonds on their balance sheet, which, if we remember, were, I think, backed by Bitcoin. And like that's where the tie-in is to the crypto market. And people are really unsure, actually, about how much of the quote unquote real market is tied into these crypto coins, and especially stable coins like Tether. It's kind of an open question.
Yeah. And what is going on with Bitcoin? Because that's, of course, the main cryptocurrency that a lot of very powerful and important people have real funds tied up in, such as Elon Musk. What has been going on with that?
I mean, it's been falling the same as everything else has been falling. I mean, to my understanding, I have heard, again, I'm not an expert, that there's a big margin call on Bitcoin to look out for at around, I think, 28,000. I just looked it up. Bitcoin is at 29 and a half.
Yeah.
So it's fallen 38% year to date.
What was, if you remember that McAfee tweet where he said if it doesn't hit a certain level, he would like eat his own genitals or something along those lines? Do you remember that?
Isn't that guy that like killed himself?
Yeah, I think that guy. Okay. Yeah, but wasn't that supposed to be like 100,000 or something like that? I was wondering. I don't know if you remember the tweet that I'm talking about. It's like if it doesn't hit this certain, it's this certain level by this time. I don't know if he said he would eat his own ass or something like. No, I don't think he said that, but it's something along those lines.
That would
Jesus,
be a very athletic.
Let's not even explore what I just said. It's not. We don't need to think about that. That's fine. Why don't you explain to our viewers? Because you talked about a margin call when it comes to Bitcoin. Right. There's also a situation happening with Tesla, right? Because Tesla's been dropping as well. Tesla's the centerpiece of all this stuff, right? Can you explain to our viewers, not me obviously, but can you explain to our viewers what is a margin call and how that would come into effect and how that would possibly change things?
As we know, Rob pretends not to know the answer to things, just so he can fit in and really feel like one of the community members.
Exactly. It's like a journalistic thing. Yeah.
That's right. It's really kind and sweet of you to pretend not to know stuff that we all know that you know.
Yep.
A margin call is like sort of a classic way that you get huge sell-offs in certain stocks, and it can like exacerbate these problems because what it is that you get a loan for the bank where the collateral that you offer for the loan is a stock. And usually like the stock is valued at some sort of margin. So like, for example, Tesla, the Twitter deal, Elon had a bunch of different loans in his financing package. One of them was originally a billion dollar margin loan based off of Tesla stock, where he put up 5 times the value of the loan of Tesla stock. So if it was like 13 billion of loan, I think it was 62.5 billion of stock that he was putting up. The thing with margin calls is that once the stock drops below a certain price, they will ask you to offer up like I think actual cash to make up the difference in the collateral. And so what it forces like sell-offs of stocks. That's called a margin call. So on the Tesla stock, that was going to happen at 50%. It had fallen 40%. And as of today, Elon has not renewed the financing on the margin loan. So there is no more margin loan on Tesla's stock. There is some guy who has some loan on like a multi-billion-dollar loan where he offered up Bitcoin as collateral, and I want to say that the price, whatever that percent was on the Bitcoin price, occurs at when Bitcoin is at $28,000. I hope that explained what a margin call.
Yeah, I think it does. So where does, because I know Tesla, their stock has been falling as well, and Tesla, we've talked before, but they're completely like. Their stock price, which is inflated basically just purely on vibes and is not tethered to any kind of like product or profit or anything like that. It's just completely artificially inflated through pure like ego and marketing.
When they were at $1,000 a share, I think it was 18. It was valued at 18 times their sales.
Yeah, just completely untethered from any actual reality of purchasing or selling products or any of that stuff, the things we traditionally associate with being parts of our economy. So I know that's been dropping a lot, the stock price. My last understanding was that it was starting to maybe stabilize a little bit. What's been going on with that? So the Tesla stock price.
This thing with the margin call was like I guess having a lot of people sell off or whatever, and so. Once he announced basically that he was getting rid of the margin loan, it did have a bounce back in the stock. I think it increased like 10% yesterday. I would say that's probably going to be short-lived, given that like there's a lot of like regular news stories coming out about like Tesla owners being trapped in their burning cars, and like
They're meant to do that, actually. It's
Elon's
good.
like,
It's good when that happens.
whatever happens with this Twitter deal, like if they take him to court, that's going to get very nasty and be drawn out and long. If they don't, then like I don't know, whatever, those negotiations with Twitter, I don't think are going to go
Yeah.
well. And either way, like I said last Friday, like he is contractually obligated to complete this loan with Twitter.
Yeah.
And so he will have to sell off something to pay. And it's not just the $1 billion walkaway. That is not, he is going to be on the hook for probably more than $1 billion. And so we'll just have to see whether Twitter thinks it's worth it to deal with him, to take him to court.
Yeah. So what's going on with that? Because he's obviously either he's playing games. I mean, it did seem, especially like last week when he started talking about the bots, giving himself wiggle room to get out of the deal. Is that still going ahead? Or like, because I saw something that he's somehow like refinanced part of the deal, which will require him to take less risk. But like, is this deal going ahead? Is he still trying to wiggle out of it?
I think I listened to the TrueAnon episode that came out today earlier, and I think Liz Franzek on there was saying that basically when he tweeted about the bots, that was like securities fraud to get, I don't know if securities fraud is the right word, but basically it was a ploy to like decrease the price of Twitter stocks to try and force Twitter into a negotiation so that he can get a better price on shares, because like their shares have fallen pretty considerably from when he made the offer. If he went to court, he would lose. But he doesn't. He wants to get the price down because he doesn't want to have to sell off as much Tesla, and that's really what it's about. But he's still like legally bound to complete the terms of the contract that he signed.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this on Friday, if I recall too. So I saw him talking with like that fucking weirdo Ian Miles Chong, who was like, if 25% of Twitter is bots, then you should go take 25% off the offer price. And he's like, absolutely. And it's like, Elon, that's not how this works. That's not how contracts work, sir. You can't just decide. Yeah.
That's not a thing that you can do. But thank you, Twitter user.
Yeah. Ian Miles Chong. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, really, really weird stuff. So yeah, I guess that's the kind of interesting thing, is whether this deal's going to go ahead or whether like the idea of it getting to that messy level would just be kind of enjoyable. And I guess that's you talked about like, you know, how fake the crypto economy is, how everything is. I mean, it's just, I think that really drives home how arbitrary all this stuff is, when he's just like, so much of our global economy is just based on this man and his fucking narcissism and egomania, and how he has the ability to raise or lower stock prices with his tweets. And
illegally.
no one seems that interested in regulating this in any way, or no one thinks it's abnormal that our entire economy is built on this.
No, the SEC is a fucking joke. Do you want to know what the big story was this week about the SEC and their scary enforcement? They're cracking down on investment funds that are greenwashing.
Okay.
Thank you, SEC.
So they're greenwashing. Like, what is that? What do you mean by that?
Like they
like
will
investment
have,
funds
like,
that are investing in green infrastructure and stuff, or
that's
projects.
what they say, or they'll say like, "Oh, we're a zero carbon investment fund," or "We're a whatever," and they say like, "These are funds that if you're environmentally conscious, these are what you should invest in." So they're cracking down on those guys.
Okay, great.
Thank you,
Yeah,
SEC.
thank you, SEC. And you mentioned this before too, when it comes to Musk, how he's made like feuding with the SEC publicly, like he's been doing that a lot, while they've let him basically get away with murder, right? Like,
yeah,
and he still frames them as being like they're his enemies somehow.
Yeah, they haven't ever done anything to him, which they are legally within their rights to do, because he is flagrantly violating the law with his tweets.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to lock him up.
They never even actually enforced the action that they did take against him. So
amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Let's talk a little bit about inflation, because obviously that's something we've been hearing about a lot. The inflation that's going on, and I think one interesting thing. Okay, so here's one interesting thing that's happening. One, as there are these, like, you've seen Musk go through this kind of mask off process where he kind of pretended he was kind of part of like polite liberal society, and he's more and more embraced this kind of arch conservative supervillain persona. And now you're seeing, like, as the union movement is speeding up and affecting things like Amazon, you're seeing Bezos as well, who's positioned himself as this kind of enlightened, benign, environmentally conscious liberal type. He's kind of going through this mask off moment. Bezos was saying the other day, Joe Manchin was the only thing that saved the Democrats from themselves. It was only because of their rampant social spending that caused the economy to overheat in this way.
Not true.
Which leads to this inflation. Yeah, can we debunk this idea? Is that why inflation happens? Because the U.S. government spends money on social services that overheats the economy?
Literally not true. That's not what happens. I mean, like, there have been periods of, like, there's no evidence that this is true. There have been periods where the Fed has, like, brought interest rates very low and was spending a lot of money, and you didn't have high inflation. And there have been periods where they have done the opposite and you have had inflation. There's no evidence that that is the case, but it is what people are convinced of, that, like, and the Fed is also convinced of this, that, like, wages are tied to inflation, that if you have to start paying people more, that is what causes inflation. And that the only way for you to deal with inflation is to keep, like, unemployment at some, what they call, a neutral level. Uh, Nothing can convince them that this is not the case.
Yeah, even though there's famously, while the minimum wage in America has been the same for fucking decades now, lo and behold, prices for products have still gone up in that period. It doesn't seem to be tied together whatsoever.
Not to mention, there's, like, an entire, like, supply side of the economy that they are completely uninterested in looking into at all as a cause for inflation.
Yeah. Can we talk about why? Do you have any ideas of why it is happening? Like, is it just a matter of, like, of the rich overlords of our society basically holding an axe over our heads and
I mean, it's
deliberately
not really
raising prices because they want more profits?
I mean, in a way, yes, but in a way, no, because, like, it is true that many industries are price gouging, but at the same time, those industries are also they also have to buy stuff, right? And they also have to keep ahead of inflation. And so what they will say that they're trying to do is keep ahead of inflation. And there is some evidence that, like, some companies are hitting the limit of what they can get away with price wise, and that they're no longer able to actually even keep up with inflation. Um, so it's not, I mean, basically, like, sort of the prevailing theory that I seem to buy is that it's a supply shock from COVID that caused a lot of this sort of inflation to kick off, um, where, you had this total disruption of supply chains and the sort of, like, just in time global shipping industry and the way that people do their business, where they don't keep huge inventories, they don't have warehouses, they don't keep things on hand. And then it was shown, like, during the pandemic, basically how risky that can be, to really depend on things getting to you, like, basically, like, they get to you just when you need to put them on your shelf, and then you can cut costs with warehouses and storing inventories. So a big part of inflation now is companies, like, trying to get away from this just in time supply chain. But what that means is they have to spend money building warehouses, and then they have a recurring cost of storing all this inventory. And that's what's going to make inflation stick.
Yeah. And I'm sure one thing that's going to really help all this is more saber rattling with China and starting more open conflict with them over Taiwan or this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, all of this, like, war stuff with Ukraine, like, the whole wheat crisis, maybe that would have happened anyway. There's some other stuff going on with wheat, but basically that whole inflation cycle on wheat kicked off because of the sanctions on Russia, and then also war in Ukraine, who are
Yeah.
two major global suppliers of wheat.
Yeah. And just also going back to this idea of inflation and, what causes it. And I think that's the frustrating thing is seeing how pervasive this sort of neoliberal view of this is among the entire political class, but in the Democratic Party here, the sort of like Larry Sumner's view of this. And you can tell Biden believes it as well, and that's why they've hemmed and hawed over the idea of increased spending or increased social spending. That's why this is what should be an easy decision to cancel student debt for people. You have Biden administration kind of like paralyzed in fear over this, and coming up with all these means testing schemes to explain it, because they view this idea that like fundamentally erasing people's debt or going heavier into this kind of social spending is going to lead to this kind of economic meltdown. That's what like the economic leaders of America believe, and that's I think what liberal leaders of the Democratic Party believe also, it seems like.
Yeah, but it is really insane actually, because even before the pandemic, I remember I was reading about there are sometimes what is called like super cycles, which is basically where some commodity that it takes a long time from when you start like copper, right? A lot of mining metals and stuff. Like from the day you open a copper mine to the day you get copper out of the mine is 7 years. So there is a huge delay from when you start spending money on opening a new mine and when you actually get new copper out of it. And there was already indications that there would be huge like inflationary cycles on a lot of these precious metals because of the demand for green energy and electronics technology, that would cause like huge inflation in like basic stuff like copper. Because basically, even if they had started at that time opening all these new copper mines, the production would never like keep pace basically with what the demand is. And you're seeing the kind of the same thing with like chips, right? With like the computer chips and the silicon chips, they go in everything now. And there's simply no way to like have production meet what the demand is for these commodities like chips
like you were
or even like metals.
like you were saying, like cars are now going back to having analog speedometers and stuff precisely because they don't have the capability to put computer screens to do all this stuff.
Yeah
Crazy.
So the inflation, in my opinion, is very much supply driven. And the thing with gas is, like, I think I talked about this last time too in the last episode. But basically, they had done this like a poll basically of these Texan oil and gas producers, and they had asked them like, there's this whole, there's like big news articles that come out like, oh, Biden has opened up lands to public drilling. In fact, there's a lot of like unused leases for drilling, and none of these companies are drilling. None of them are even using the leases that they have. So opening new ones doesn't do anything. So they were asking them basically like, okay, well, what does the price of oil have to be for you to go drilling? And it was like 40% of these companies in Texas that they asked said there's no price. There is no price at which they will drill more oil because their investors like the high prices. It means their dividends are higher.
Yeah.
And this is really like the heart of inflation is like investors are addicted to their returns, and there's no stomach for doing like huge capital expenditures.
Yeah, and that's been the amazing thing too about Biden going like hand in hand to Venezuela to try and get some like relief from that and try to get them involved again in oil production, despite spending the last 5 years trying to overthrow their government, or longer really. Or conversely, like going to Saudi Arabia, can we give you unflinching diplomatic support while you commit mass murder and genocide, and you're crucifying people in the streets and stuff, and we're selling you the weapons to carry out these kind of like horrific crimes. But by the way, can you increase production maybe a little bit just to help out? And they're just like, no, absolutely not. No.
And with client states like these, who needs enemies?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it. It's kind of like funny to at least see the not to stand. We don't stand Saudi Arabia, obviously, but that's part of the thing I've been talking about, this kind of like ongoing shift of polarity or whatever, where you have now these countries that are just like feeling a lot more comfortable telling America to go fuck themselves, which is just, regardless, it's just kind of enjoyable to see.
You love to see the empire take an L.
You do, yeah, you absolutely do. It is enjoyable.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything else? Like, I think housing is the other big, segment to our economy that just seems like completely unsustainably fucked. In Canada, even more so. Considering how housing was such a central component to the financial crisis in 2008, how does the housing market fit into this coming recession? Is this like endless, completely unsustainable growth happening in the financialization of the housing market here and elsewhere? Is there any end in sight of this? I saw someone in the chat asking, like, should we buy, or should we be waiting around for some kind of a housing collapse? Like, is such a collapse coming? Like, what? I have no idea what to do either.
I really don't think that there is going to be a housing collapse, because the thing about housing is that there's this huge like hunt among investors, and I think we talked about this last time too, investors and like pension funds and like markets that need really stable returns, for somewhere they can put their money where they get decent returns, but like that are very stable. And like a lot of the old go-tos have really fallen to the wayside. Like even like sovereign bonds aren't what they used to be. And so like you're seeing a lot of these investment like fund managers and investment companies and like BlackRock, right? Like invest in the housing market. I actually was just reading something right before this about how there has been a drop off in mortgage applications. There's been a drop off in like new home construction, but there has been no corresponding drop off in prices. And I really think it's because it's not people applying for mortgages or people living in homes that are driving the housing bubble crisis. It's investment firms. And as like all these other stocks collapse, as these sovereign nations as the sovereign debt like defaults like Sri Lanka just did, there's probably going to be more to follow, as like you have these sort of more recessionary market things start happening. They're only going to want those stable returns more and more.
Yeah.
So they only have more incentive to keep investing in housing, which means housing basically just becomes purely a commodity, completely separate from the fact that like people need somewhere to live.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's this relentless financialization of everything which is like been such a dominant factor in the way our economy functions. And it's kind of like we said with Tesla, has become completely divorced with any notion of what people need to live, making products that people purchase completely based on just nothing. It's what makes it very strange to understand. And like you've pointed out before, all the language around the economy and how it works is intentionally difficult for people to understand. It intentionally obfuscates all these real forces and makes it impossible for average folks, not like me or you, obviously, to understand these big, powerful forces and the large role they play in our lives.
It's full of jargon. Like they literally basically talk in code sometimes.
Yeah.
They're
they're the high priests or the monks or whatever that interpret the sacred texts for us.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
There was one other thing I wanted to say about inflation, which is that, and I think it's the main thing we talked about last time, is the Fed and its whole thing with interest rates. And the thing about the Fed has some like three major things that are part of its mandate, which is keeping that unemployment level at the quote unquote natural level. And another one of them is keeping inflation at or around 2%. As we know, inflation is around between core inflation excluding food and gas, I think is around 5 to 6%. And what they call headline inflation, which includes everything, is around 7 or 8%. And they keep saying we're going to keep pushing interest rates and driving up interest rates until inflation comes down to our target, which is 2%, which I don't even know is possible given the issues with supply chain. So that's then like trying to like grind down inflation is really, it's going to be interesting to watch that conflict between them and the stock market, because they're trying not to like spook the stock market too much. And then also like the contradiction between like capitalists who have to pay workers wages and capitalists who are making money off the financialization of housing. That's another very interesting conflict to watch, because that's an inter-class conflict on the part of the capitalists. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Is there anything else we didn't cover? Is there anything in your notes that we didn't cover?
We didn't talk about wheat. Wheat is the big.
Okay. Well, let's hear about
I have
this.
a bunch of notes about different stocks if we want to keep talking about stocks, and I have some notes about wheat. So I guess it's choose your own adventure.
I would like to talk about both those things. You mentioned the wheat issue, in terms of like the way that the Russian invasion of Ukraine and all these sanctions are going to affect that. What other kind of ripple effects is that going to have throughout the global markets, and how is it going to affect the ability of other countries to make sure that their populations have enough to eat?
Yeah, so that's how it started. So as soon as basically the conflict broke out, you have, especially in like the Middle East and some like places like Kazakhstan, I think, like this region, they import a lot of wheat. The number one place is Egypt. Egypt imports like 80% of its wheat, and they rely on a bread subsidy program to really like keep, that's one of their major like neoliberal reforms, is this bread subsidy that they provide to the poor. And so as soon as the conflict broke out, you had like Egypt meeting with France, you had other countries like India planting an extra crop of wheat. But then these extra like plantings have now had issues where like India planted this extra crop, but they got hit by a heat wave that like threatened to reduce the yield of the wheat. Like, and when I say yield, I mean like literally how much wheat they're producing. And now they have completely exported they have completely halted the export of wheat from India. They will not be exporting wheat, and they're also no longer exporting sugar from India because of domestic concerns. France planted extra wheat, but they are also suffering from these same kind of adverse weather conditions, and they had a winter drought. They're also not gonna, they're expecting 30% less than what they had predicted. So they're also not gonna have enough to supply global import needs. And then recently it just came out that North Dakota isn't like on pace with their planting. There's been this huge thing in the US with like fertilizers, like price inflation on fertilizers where farmers couldn't afford it. There's also been some bad weather, I guess, in North Dakota. They're also probably not going to have a high wheat supply. So it's like increasingly like all the sort of like backup plans for like making up this wheat deficit are like suffering from their own issues.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a huge, huge, huge problem.
Yeah, and like HTA is saying in the chat, like, what's the cause of these weather conditions? And you see that all these things are this feedback loop that we're stuck in. That's impossible to get out of.
And the thing about food shortages is like inflation in a basic staple like bread is that it's going to cause like what they call emerging markets to default on a lot of their like IMF debt and stuff. And so that's also gonna, I mean, that's bad for them, obviously, because the IMF is criminal, but it also is going to affect like your financial markets, which really rely on sovereign debt as like stable return vehicles. Sri Lanka won't be the last country to default on their debt, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw an interesting, I don't know if you saw the tweet going around about China too, where it's like China's hoarding 1/3 of the world's grain supply or something like that too, suggesting that they were like stealing from everyone else, and not that they've been trying to like account for some of these possible shortages and have been like making extra care to ensure, obviously a country that's very familiar with famine, making sure that their ability to feed their population is going to be unimpeded. And people are framing it as if they're doing this nefarious thing where they're like hoarding all the food from everyone else.
People are so unused in the West to seeing good governance that when they see it in China,
we
they
just don't
think
understand.
It's nefarious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's so bizarre to us. Like what are they building? What's the real purpose behind building all this high-speed rail system? Like, what game are you playing at here? The idea that they would just like do something that might help some people in their society is just like, that's obviously it's not that.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't you write the same story about India? I don't think you should. I think it's responsible of them to stop exporting wheat if they're not sure they have enough to feed the billion people that live in India. But they halted the export of their wheat. You
Yeah.
could write the same story about them, but it's not about that.
Yeah. So, what about what you mentioned stocks? Do you have any hot stock tips? What is the market?
No.
What is the stock market telling us about these economic circumstances?
I had posted that tweet that you made go viral, unfortunately. Well, viral to me. To me, 70 likes is like, oh,
that's great.
This is too much heat. I got to go underground. But showing kind of what the year-to-date tech stocks were. Tech stocks in a recession or in a recessionary environment are going to go first because whatever they promise you about tech, what they actually are like different ways to sell ads. Every single tech company, even Apple that like makes phones, one of the major things they do is sell ads. Google sells ads, Spotify sells ads. There was that story going around about Snapchat. Like, why is Snapchat worried about? It's because they sell ads and they rely on people who make things to sell ads. And so that you've seen a huge quote. This is what someone from the Financial Times said. It is a full-scale, complete puke of tech, a full-fledged eject button. Less than a year has gone by, and all the high-growth software companies are now evil with no profits. I think it's a wholesale shift out of tech into defensive sectors, energy, and utilities. Because the company that replaced Apple as the number one stock is now Saudi Arabia's Aramco. So
cool.
And you also you keep having people bringing up the Volcker shock. So like I feel like anytime people in the investment world are like constantly bringing up the Volcker shock, like they're seeing like klaxon sirens going off in their head.
Yeah, the Kill Bill siren going off.
Right. But it's not just tech stocks, right? So it's like, okay, well, there's been a huge sell-off in tech stocks, but people have been selling off bonds. They've been selling off inflation-protected bonds. They've been selling off metals, gold, crypto. Okay, people are just selling everything. People don't know what to invest in. So, like, I think the mood of people who invest in the stock market indicates to me that they at least think a recession is coming. And the thing about a fake economy is that if people think a recession is coming, they can like help a recession come.
Yeah. And if you're just in a certain position, you can profit from it as well. Right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Cool. I love the system.
You also saw like companies that people are going to be buying from, like Walmart and Target, Dollar General, Dollar Tree. Those also like had a big tumble in the stock market because they're sort of advising like, hey, we're not expecting our Q2 earnings to be what they said they were going to be at the end of Q1. Like they're kind of like they're putting it out ahead of time like, hey, like don't be freaked out when you look at the Q2 earnings because like they're not going to be as good as we said they were going to be.
Yeah.
So that's certainly worrying because that's like, you're durable because that's where people are buying groceries and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that when you talk about the idea of a possible recession on the horizon, that's the kind of thing where it's like, I don't think we need to take your word for it, but I think what you're able to do by paying attention to this shit and reading the Financial Times and these horrible capitalist publications indicates that wealthy and powerful people in the banking industry and in this big business, they think one is coming, and that's kind of the important thing that we need to be keeping our eyes on, right?
That's kind of what I think. Like, I don't know, like you have the Fed. I mean, the Fed has to say that they're not trying to cause a recession. Like to say otherwise would literally be negligence, but they keep using the phrase a soft landing. Oh, we're trying to have it be a soft landing. We're trying to like slow down inflation without affecting the strong labor market. This is not possible.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're going to keep pushing until they get inflation below 2%. They're going to push it right into a recession.
Yeah.
I think I think anyone who says otherwise is fooling themselves.
Yeah. Right in time with the ability of the right wing in American politics to recapture all levels of power as the rise of fascism is being more and more normalized. Historically, not a lot of great trends there when you look at that. These kind of things coming together. Doesn't spell anything good. Yeah.
Nothing good. Yeah, nothing good. It's going to be pretty bad, I think. I think it's going to be pretty bad because inflation is going to be high too. It's still probably going to be, it's not going to go down that much.
Yeah.
So like, you don't have a job and everything is more expensive. Like,
That's a bad combination.
It's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. With frothing at the mouth reactionaries at every level of government, ensuring that there's no actual like real response to this in any way that helps anybody. Great stuff. Great stuff.
It's hard to say like what exactly will cause like your Black Tuesday moment. I think you never know like what that's going to be until it occurs.
Yeah. Well, that's why I thought it could be that Elon stuff.
It could have been.
The accusations that came out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought that's what it was going to be.
Yeah, I think if he had kept going with this margin loan, I mean, like, I feel like the Tesla stocks would have kept plummeting. But I really don't think the end of the Tesla plummet is. I think it's temporarily halted, but
Okay. Well,
I don't know that it's over.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's been a great economics update. I know we all have a better understanding of all this stuff. We will continue to check in with our resident finance sickos. And again, if you're part of the finance sicko community subsect of TRRS, you can go into the thread, the finance sickos thread under the news and politics section in the TRRS Discord server, of which Red Scary is a highly valued community member. Thank you, Red Scary, for coming down to break down Scarynomics for all of us.
Anytime. Bye bye.
Do you have anything? Do you have when's the next theory night?
We're supposed to. So we kind of like finished up a materialism series, and so we feel ready to move on to something else. So we're starting a series on imperialism. So we're starting with Lenin's imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, which right now we broke it into 2 sessions. We might have to break it into 3 depending on what people can read. But that is going to be next Thursday, a week from today at 9 p.m. Eastern in the Discord. So if you want to read Lenin's Imperialism, the High Stage of Capitalism, feel free. If you just want to hear us talk about reading it, you're welcome to do that also. So, join the Discord.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for coming on the stream, Red Scary. Always a pleasure. And I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye for real this time.
Okay. Bye-bye. Great stuff. Thank you, Red Scary. Thank you, Red Scary. That was wonderful. For some reason, my Discord command didn't seem to have worked there. It's kind of odd. That was great stuff. Andrew Neal, this motherfucker looks like just a ham. This looks like a ham. A human ham. TLDR, everything's great. That's right. Looks like he swallowed a goalie mask. Absolutely. Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, that was Red Scary. Thanks again to Red Scary. That was really great stuff. Yeah, I think the main point is that everything's doing okay. That's why we call that type of old white dude a gammon over here. He does look like a wee bit of a gammon, didn't he? Maybe I don't need to start with that again. Maybe I don't need to start with that. Okay. I think my internet's working again, but it was up for a minute earlier, then it died again. Don't know what to believe. Well, you're here now, Sean. That's all that matters. We had a double feature Red Scary on TRRS while being read on Kira chats. Red Scary is just taking over this entire platform. When the eventual coup happens in this community and I'm overthrown, Red Scary will no doubt be deeply implicated in all that. Yeah, you don't need to deny it. Don't deny it. Yeah, I know all about your little secret plans. You don't think I know about this? You don't think I got people infiltrating all the secret DMs that you're in? Yeah, I know about it. I know all about it. Believe me, I know. Even when you're at home alone and you're talking, I can hear you. I'm listening. It's a bluff, Scary. Rob, if a coup happens, I'll personally find the responsible party, outrun, and give him the what for. Okay, good to know. Good to know. That's a little something called loyalty. Maybe some of you should look it up in the dictionary. We see plans within plans. We see two great houses. Oh boy. Brandon needs to stop listening to his pet sickos. Price controls and a Green New Deal type program would fix this shit real quick. If only there was a guy named Bernie Sanders that would maybe be president right now, would probably be having a different approach to some of these things, wouldn't they? If only. Oh well. Oh well. That's right, if I'm Frasier, then Lodane is Roz. That's absolutely right. Installed Ring doorbells in our homes. Would never even dream of doing that. Never even dream of spying on anyone in this community. Bernie would have been hit with the heart attack gun by now. They tried to get him the one time. He dodged it. They got him partially. They got him with a partial blast of the heart attack gun. Can I be the grumpy dad? I'm kind of the grumpy dad as well. That's the problem. I gotta rewatch Frasier. I really do for a Frasier rewatch. I haven't seen Frasier in many years. If only Sanders would exercise any of his power by, say, discouraging his voters from supporting the nominee until he got screwed out of the primary for a second time. It's like that famous sports clip. They are who they thought we were. They are who we thought they were. He was who we thought he is. Don't trust the liberals, folks. They'll betray you. Right?
Just.
It's ridiculous having to copy all this by hand. We should have it printed.
We could get help from one of the groups in the liberal movement.
No. Don't trust the liberals. They will betray you.
He was right. This man was right. This man was right. Diagonal cut only. That's right, Quinn Better. Thank you. That's absolutely correct. That's law whatever, Doug. Diagonal. Full diagonal. This is a diagonal sandwich cut community. All right? And if you don't like it, you can get out. Yeah, abolish police and let us live in a barbaric society where anyone can steal whatever they want. Famously, crime is, the more you fund police, the more crime goes down. That's why America, there's no crime, right? You fund the police so much, and just everyone knows like math. The more you fund the police, the less crime there is. That's why famously in the United States of America, no crimes ever happen, because you pump billions and billions of dollars into those police departments. In the city budgets around the country, across the country, and in Canada. That's why there's no crime. All that police funding has really done a lot to stop crime from happening. It really did a lot to stop the mass murder of children in the mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas. The massively funded police department there did a great job. Police departments across the country really doing a bang-up job stopping crime. Thank you, sir. Thank you, generous, brave chatter, for enlightening us on this. If you just give the cops a few billion more, it'll totally work this time. They're so close. They're going to stop crime forever. There's going to be no more crime. There's just going to be no more crime. It's actually good to spend billions of dollars that could be going towards housing and education and healthcare and the environment, the climate. Spending that, why would you spend that money on that when you can give it to this organized gang of armed thugs who have the ability to just murder people with total impunity at as soon as danger is possibly even on the horizon? What a great allotment of funds that is. It's a great idea. It's a great way to organize a society and run a society. Who needs things like education and healthcare and parks and, investing in the climate? Who needs any of those things? Let's give them to fucking failed gym teacher, aggressive testosterone poison freaks to just beat and murder people in our communities. Doesn't that sound better? Doesn't that sound better? Thank you, police. Would be really scary to live in this kind of scary society where there's all kinds of crime and murder happening all the time. Thank goodness that doesn't exist in our current society when we spend billions and billions of dollars on these fucking armed gangs roving our fucking communities. Thank you, brave chatter, for reminding us of this. What if we didn't have 4 neo-Nazi gangs in the LASD? Who would we turn to? This is a question. Who would we turn to? We say we have freedom of speech in the U.S., but I cannot say how I truly feel about all this. Well, that's it. You're free to want to give the cops smooches, hugs and smooches, for being brave little boys and girls. Beyond that, not so much. Or you're free to say the things you believe about what should happen to the police. Not that that has any actual impact on what the fucking government does. You can have the biggest mass mobilization in American history. You can vote blue and insist that you need to rein in the police and reform the police, defund the police, abolish the police. Not only you can be the vast majority of people believe in the vast majority of people do indeed want to kind of rein in these police powers. Does that you can go out and say that in free speech? You can go out and say it. Does that actually have, or you can vote for someone that says they want to support that? Does that have an actual impact in this phenomenon, or police budgets, or police activity? No, it does not. That's all the good that free speech does you. We can say it, it just doesn't make actually a difference. We can't actually do anything to change the thing that we're talking about. We can talk about it all we want, though. I can come in here on Twitch and talk about how we should defund the police. That we can do. Actually changing things, not so much. Thanks again for watching the stream, folks. Okay? Much appreciated. Thanks for watching and for the support. Thanks to Red Scary. Very much appreciated, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to be talking to some members of the Communist Party of Canada tomorrow about the election that they have coming up in Ontario, Doug Ford, and all this stuff, and how the Communist Party views engaging in electoral politics, and that should be a great discussion. That's going to happen tomorrow. Okay? Remember that Washington State trooper who died of COVID? That was a great day. Well, when he gave his big speech, that's what led to the very famous TRRS Sad Rob emote. Because I was watching this guy's speech, and it made me very emotional. That led to the famous Sad Rob emote, and now that man is dead of COVID. He died of COVID because he didn't want to get... He lost his job because he didn't want to get a little ouchie. He didn't want to get a little ouchie. And he's no longer alive. Prayers up for that guy. Can we get a thank you, COVID, in the chat? Sometimes you do have to hand it to COVID. I'm sorry. I know many million people have died of the novel coronavirus. Sometimes it's not, sometimes it gets it right, you know? Thanks again, friends. I'll talk to you tomorrow, okay? Communist Party chat tomorrow. All right? Take care.